Take two, yeah, take two.
The White House has condemned what it calls blatantly anti-Semitic statements at student protests against the war in Gaza. Fractious demonstrations at Columbia University in New York have rumbled on for 6 days, while arrests have been made at other major colleges, including Yale. Jewish students at Columbia have been warned to go home with classes moved online. Some pro-Palestine protesters have been suspended. Critics say this is a free speech issue, conflating criticism of Israel with hatred of Jews.
Sound all right?
Others say it's simply unacceptable that Jewish students do not feel safe. Well, joining me now to discuss all this are the editor of the Yale Free Press, Sahar Tartak, who was jabbed in the eye with a Palestinian flag by a protester, the Arab-Israeli journalist Youssef Haddad, who was assaulted at a protest at Columbia University, the host of Breaking Points, Crystal Ball, and author of Go Back to Where You Come From, Wajahat Ali. Well, welcome to all of you. Let me start with you, if I may, Sahar. Tell me exactly what happened to you.
Sure. So I went to a large anti-Semitic campus rally on Saturday night to document the protest with another visibly Jewish friend. He wears a black hat and tzitzit, which are ritual fringes, and has a beard. And I dress in ritually modest clothing and wear a Star of David. And we were immediately identified by protest organizers as, I guess, the enemy. And so they blockaded us by creating a human blockade, as in standing in a line with their arms linked in front of us. And eventually Netanel and I were separated, and so each of us were assigned separate human blockades made of protest organizers that taunted us and waved flashlights in our face. And as the other 500 anti-Semitic students at the rally noticed us and identified us, they joined in on the taunting. And so I was encircled by 500 students who were singing and dancing against the Jewish people in a circle around this plaza at Yale, basically the central plaza on our campus. And as they taunted me and waved their middle finger in my face and waved their keffiyehs in my face, one of them took his Palestinian flag, waved it in my face, and then
jabbed me in the left eye. Did she say why she was there, by the way? I can't remember.
And you ended up going to hospital for treatment for this?
I did. So first, I tried to run after the assailant. It was extremely disorienting, and the human blockade continued to stand in front of me to prevent me from holding the student accountable and to protect the student from receiving consequences for assaulting me. And so then I went to the police, who called an ambulance. The EMT checked me out, and then the EMT said, "We should take you to the hospital," and so I went to the hospital.
Okay, and we've got a little clip, I think. It's not actually of you getting hit with by the flag. It's just of the general melee. Let's take a look at this. This is the blockade that was going on at the time. There's no
all right, they're holding arms at the back.
Clip, but it shows a little sense of what was happening. How scared were you about what was happening? And in response to those who say that the vast majority of protesters are not anti-Semitic and are simply protesting about the Israeli government's response to the Hamas terror attacks, which they believe is massively disproportionate, what do you say to that?
So, with the question of how I was feeling, I think can also answer the second question. The reason I felt so unsafe is because I know that these students want me dead, and I know that they know who I am. And how do I know this? Because they shout en masse, there is only one solution.
Also, it's not like she's going to talk back to me, so I don't know what I'm playing up. Just chill out.
An intifada revolution at these rallies. They shout about martyrs. They shout about resistance is justified. I mean, after October 7th, I saw hundreds of peers, people from my classes, shouting resistance is justified. And celebrating the resistance's success is something that many of them posted on social media. So, with this in mind, of course I feel unsafe because I know that they support genocide against the Jewish people by terrorist organizations such as Hamas, but not only by Hamas. There's another picture at this rally, and the rally has become a multi-day event, which included an encampment, like a set of 40 or so tents taking over campus. And one of the posters at this rally is a poster of Walid Daka, he led a PFLP group to mutilate and murder a 19-year-old Israeli Jew.
Okay, let's bring in Vajahat Ali. Vajahat, this is very disconcerting seeing these scenes on college campuses in America. You know, I'm all for free speech. It's the bedrock of Piers Morgan Uncensored. It's what we're all about. But free speech should not involve Jewish students being terrorized with this kind of rhetoric, which, you know, we've seen and heard it all with our own eyes and ears, that there are people involved in these protests who are chanting things which would present a real threat and danger to Jewish students. It's unacceptable, isn't it?
It is unacceptable. And first of all, I would say happy Passover to all Jewish cousins around the world who are celebrating. Hopefully there's peace and security for all our communities. I'll also say, like I said on your show before, there's been a stunning spike in anti-Semitism and Islamophobia as a result of this war, which has resulted in harassment, threats, doxing. And in the case of 3 Palestinian students, they were shot, one is paralyzed, and a 6-year-old Palestinian boy, Wadia, was killed. His mother was stabbed. In this particular case right now,
That was
I feel
early
really
on
bad
as well,
for our 2
wasn't it,
guests
I think?
who were subject to violence, who I'm
landlord,
sure
like,
are
stabbed
traumatized.
the child
I'm
or
grateful that no one has any permanent damage or injury. And I would hope that we can all agree here that anti-Semitism and Islamophobia is a problem, has no place in these protests, but we can also agree
The guy on
that
the
we
far
can have
left's
empathy
looking
for
hawkish,
why
man.
people are protesting. Overwhelming majority of them, by the way, are peaceful according to law enforcement, according to actual reporters on the ground who are not anti-Semitic. And many of these protesters, by the way, are Jewish. And why are they protesting, Piers? Because they're protesting what they consider to be genocide, some do, and the Israel killing 34,000 Palestinians.
You're absolutely
70,000
disattached from reality. I'm
Palestinians. Wait,
sorry.
wait.
I don't know what
Okay.
you're talking about. I don't know what
I'm
you
almost-
saw. You're
Youssef, I'll come to you in a
disattached from
moment.
Just let me finish.
This is
Youssef.
not what it is. I'm sorry.
let me
Don't
finish.
lie to the viewers.
Okay.
Youssef, let him make his point, then
Let's
I'll-
be honest
Just
with
let
each
me
other.
Youssef,
finish.
I will come to you to respond in a moment. Let him finish his point.
I'm about to finish. What are people protesting,
lying.
including Jews, Jewish students? They're protesting Israel's response to 1,200 people being killed by Hamas. So we should have empathy for Israelis and the 1,200 people and their families being killed, and the 34,000 Palestinians who have been killed, the 70,000 Palestinians who have been injured.
Here we go,
More
again
than
with
1
that
million
number.
people have been displaced. And also, as we have seen, we can have empathy
Fucking
because there are
stupid, man.
kids who are amputated, kids who have lost their eyes, their limbs. We have seen starvation,
I don't know
now,
why I'm
famine.
doing this, to be
And
fair.
this
This
is
is
why
fucking
there's a
dumb.
growing, Piers, multi-faith
This
and
guy is anyway.
multiracial movement for peace. And I think all of us should also be very wary of people who are weaponizing anti-Semitism. People who are weaponizing anti-Semitism to crush this dissent, especially people like Elise Stefanik, a Republican who promotes anti-Semitic conspiracy theories like the replacement theory and says nothing about Donald Trump, who dined with the leading white nationalist and anti-Semite Nick Fuentes, and just today, in the morning, again repeated the anti-Semitic conspiracy of a Soros witch hunt. So let's all agree
All right.
that anti-Semitism should not be weaponized. Jews and Muslims should
This
not
is
be weaponized and
unbelievable.
used against each other, and that
Okay.
anti-Semitism and Islamophobia
You're
have no
weaponizing
place.
it.
Okay,
You're
I wanna go
using
to
it as a
majority
tool.
peaceful protest
I want to go to
against the war.
Youssef Haddad. To remind viewers, you're an Arab-Israeli journalist. You were assaulted at a protest at Columbia University on Thursday. We have got a clip showing a little bit of
He looks
this
like he started it though, innit?
Kill yourself. Commit suicide. Commit suicide. Run a traffic.
I'm joking.
Jump off a building.
You can do whatever the I'm not going anywhere. I will keep revealing the truth about all of you. Why are you so close? What up?
Jump off a building.
You can do whatever the I'm not going anywhere. I will keep revealing the truth about all of you. Why are you so close? What up?
So we see you clearly there being struck by one of these protesters, but you're getting very incensed by what you were hearing from Vajahat. So what do you want to say?
Look, first of all, you can see exactly who are the peaceful protesters.
I'll be honest, I think
They
that's bollocks. Yeah, look, any protest you go to where there's like a lot of emotion and stuff, if people get as close as this is the reason why they police things, you know, and they try and keep a bit of a boundary between counter protesters and protesters. You know, I don't think the guy probably pushed this guy. I mean, he's not. So they say anti-Semitism. I don't think this guy's a Jew, is he? They said Arab. So what? These genocidal, Hamas supporting anti-Semitic guys, are also targeting this guy because he's Arab. This actually, I feel like it's a counterpoint to the whole anti-Semitism claim. Like these guys are all on some anti-Semitic hate march. If it was anti-Semitism, why they're pushing an Arab? Why they're pushing an Arab? No, it's because it's the talking points. Obviously, it should never get physical. I'll never condone that. There is personal space and whatnot, but this is why I think. I don't want to comment too much. Things need to be, this law and order and whatnot, isn't it? You're supposed to keep a certain amount of, distance between people and whatnot, like counter protesters. You don't want them to clash. But the whole thing being anti-Semitic and whatnot. Why are they pushing an Arab then? I don't understand. I'm going to speed this up, man, because it's quite slow as well.
They want freedom of speech when it only comes to one side. But if it's our freedom of speech for me to come as an Arab who lives in Israel to show the reality about our life in Israel. Now, yes, Israel is far from being perfect, just like any other country in the world. But between what they are telling and how they are presenting this conflict to the reality in Israel, there's a huge gap which I cannot agree to. Now, when I go, and I was supposed to have a lecture at Columbia University, that's why I was there. And then I see this protest, where they're chanting, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. By the way, in Arabic, it sounds different. In Arabic, it says, from al-Mayya al-Mayya, Palestine Arabiyya. Yani from the river to the sea, Palestine is an Arab. So it even further than that shows their idea on the fact that there is no room for the state of Israel, the only true democracy in the Middle East. Add to that exactly the chant of Intifada. I know what Intifada means as an Arab. I know what Intifada means not just as a translation of violent uprising. Intifada means the more death of Jews, the more death of Arabs. That's what Intifada means, and they're chanting for that. And when I ask why you're chanting for this, it will lead to more death in the land of Israel. It will lead more death in Gaza and the West.
I thought you're speaking really fast now, but I remember to put the speed up.
And they say to me, well, this is what we want. Of course, that's what they want. They eventually, at the end of that rally or at the end of that demonstration, they go back, they go there to their pub, they drink their beer, or they do whatever they want. They live in a democracy. They're not the one that suffer consequences in the Middle East. They're just doing all this from here. Very convenient. But something that I found it very, very unbelievable. All of the time talking about the majority. Of course, there are peaceful people. There are also people who are locals who are being brainwashed and don't realize what they're chanting and don't even know which river to which sea and what does Intifada mean. But there are many protesters who are violent protesters. Just see how you described me and how did you say my name with the fact that I was attacked. You will never see someone from the Palestinian side says that he was attacked by a Jewish or a pro-Israeli demonstrator. This is the thing that people are trying always to take it for Islamophobia, to take it for anti-Semitism. This is something very simple. You have their group of people supporting terrorism, and instead of the other group who are peacefully protesting coming against them and say that they are not part of us, they are protecting them. They are trying to do absolutely everything to defend them. Look at my attacker. Through the whole entire demonstration, he was without any cover. The second he decided to attack me, he covered his face. Why? Why did he decide to cover his face? Because he knows that he is going to attack me. Because he cannot handle the truth, and he cannot handle it, especially when it comes from someone who is an Arab who lives in there and knows exactly the reality. So don't let anybody fool anybody. These are dangerous protesters, and the more the NYPD suffer that or tolerate that, they're going to keep being more extreme.
There are quite a few points to make here.
There were cops over there, and it did not stop him from attacking me. Cops just 3 meters from
me. So
me.
the cops are anti-Semitic as well,
how can we even agree to something
like
that?
Not
So I'm seeking for justice,
whatever you
and
want to call it.
I've already appointed a lawyer through the Lawfare Project to seek for justice. We know the identity of the attacker, and we should see him in jail, and we should seek for justice as soon as possible in order to prevent them for trying something like this again and again against other people.
Okay, I want to bring in Crystal. You replied.
You have hundreds of thousands of people
at Columbia by saying they are
over the
more
last
upset
few
about
months.
college
So, I mean,
students
it'll
protesting
be all,
genocide
in the couple
than a
million or
population
something
of millions being starved to death.
in the UK. And
I mean, I can listen.
If it was all violent and this and that, you'd hear way more. You'd see way more evidence of it.
Mentally in the right to free democratic protest.
I mean, such violent protests. The guy's got one video of him coming really close to someone, and the guy pushes him. It's not good, obviously, but it's. I don't know, man. I would somewhat expect it. Unfortunately, any sort of highly emotive kind of protest, if you will.
I mean, it's
dumb.
bedrock of any free democratic country. but I don't believe in violent hate rhetoric. And if you're a Jewish student at one of these colleges, hearing some of these chants, which we're all hearing, it's pretty terrifying, isn't it?
Well, here's what I would say. First of all, I echo Wajahat in saying I'm glad that both of our two co-panelists are okay. And I certainly support the call for justice for Yosef, and I hope his assailant is in fact apprehended and accountability is meted out. I think it's disgusting and frankly a cheap trick to use some isolated incidents to smear an entire protest movement. And I think it's very clear what's going on here. You know, a majority of young people, a majority of college students, a majority of Biden voters believe that Israel is committing a genocide and that American taxpayer dollars are going to assist in that genocide. They're outraged by that and they're protesting. And by the way, they
No, no,
won.
Youssef, you must let her speak.
Hold on, I
Youssef,
listened to
everybody-
you, and
Youssef-
I'm not
Safe and
finished.
protects Jews and Arabs.
Youssef,
you are clearly lying
Youssef,
again and again.
you must let
Iron
other
Dome
guests speak.
protects Arabs and Jews.
Youssef,
Am I going
you
to be
must
allowed
let
to
her
speak here?
finish.
Am I going to be allowed to speak here?
Yes, you
okay,
are.
so a majority
you're allowed
of
to.
young
Do not
people
speak over other guests,
believe
please. They
that
all listen to
Israel
you.
is committing a genocide and they are protesting that. And by the way, they've won the argument. If you look at now, it's 60-40 against sending military aid to Israel. It's a majority that disapprove in America of Israel's action with regard to the Gaza Strip. So it's a cheap trick as old as time. Use a few isolated incidents to try to smear an entire movement, which has the benefit, number one, of attempting to delegitimize it, and number two, of distracting from the continued atrocities which are unfolding at the hands of the IDF in the Gaza Strip. We just had multiple attacks on Rafah, 22 people killed, including 18 children. We just had another mass grave discovered outside of a hospital in Khan Yunis. But rather than talking about that, we're talking about a few, assholes at a protest. Yeah, guess what? Assholes exist. I lament that as much as the next person. But I don't remember this level of condemnation when it came to people with actual power saying, hey, we should, Josh Hawley, let's bounce the rubble in Gaza. Lindsey Graham, let's level the place. Max Miller, we're going to turn that into a parking lot, and on and on and on. So this is, listen, I condemn anti-Semitism. I certainly condemn violence. But let's be serious about who the villains are right now.
Would you agree that Hamas are villains?
The villains are the
Well, hang
terrorist
on,
organization
Youssef.
Hamas.
Oh
Hang on,
my
I'm
god, he's
asking-
gone back to it. Fuck. I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this or not, but this guy's gone back to condemning Hamas after flipping like 7 months, man.
Question. Would you agree
Yes, of course.
that
Of
Hamas
course.
are villains?
Terrorist. And so is the Israeli government, given the number of civilians that they have intentionally targeted and killed, including targeting with a complete siege,
Yo,
which has
this is
triggered
so
a famine
dumb.
in northern Gaza and caused
I don't know
children
why
to
I'm doing
literally
this, man.
starve to death. It's collective punishment. There's just no denying it.
Okay. Sahar, let me bring you back.
This is absolutely lies, Pierce, but you cannot. This is absolutely lies. It's a lie on a line. It's a narrative that was adopted by the terrorist organization Hamas. This is what they want. I'm telling you, I'm speaking to Palestinians in Gaza. I don't know if any
They're
of the
having a
people
great time.
in this panel have
Having a
direct
great
contact
time,
with
aren't
Palestinians in Gaza. I have many friends there, and I speak to them. And I also shared many videos of Palestinians who are calling the fact that Hamas are the one who is responsible. That Hamas hiding among them and hiding under the ground like cowards. And it was Hamas who uses the hospitals and Hamas that uses mosques and also churches as terror base. The Palestinians saying that, and then you have some Americans come and say otherwise. And talking about the famine in Gaza. Tons of aid was entered to Israel through Egypt, from also the UAE, from also Jordan. Tons of aid. They are talking about showing how they are having food, but those pictures you will not see. You will not see them, even in CNN or any other media, because you don't want to adopt this
Well,
narrative. You want
actually,
to have the
Youssef,
narrative of Hamas.
Youssef,
People, by the way,
Youssef, if
people
I
are
may
talking-
jump in.
Wait,
No, hang on. One of the reasons that we're not seeing what you're describing is because the IDF won't let journalists go in and see what's going on. So that is part of the problem. But there can be no doubt there's a massive humanitarian crisis there. All the people are starving to
There
death.
is enough TikTok videos.
Well, if
There
the
is-
IDF
Oh,
has
the
nothing
fucking
to
is
hide,
enough
I'll
TikTok
go in.
videos, bro. The
Hold
fucking
on,
is.
hold on. Don't all
There's
talk
too
over
many.
each
The
other.
Palestinians themselves.
Youssef, if the IDF has nothing
so I
to
would
hide,
say there's enough
Youssef,
videos-
if the
there's
IDF has
enough
nothing to
videos
hide,
that-
There's
let
enough
the media.
TikTok videos of IDF in flipping Gazan women's, nightwear and underwear and all these perverted, disgusting things that they flipping do, man.
Have complete free run. Let them see it for themselves. But
And
they won't. They
And
won't.
as far as I can say, as far as I'm concerned, they should be allowed. All I'm saying is that you can go to TikTok on the Arab social media, and you will see the Palestinians themselves uploading it. Okay, you don't have even to have a permission of the
I would
IDF.
rather
But one
see.
point-
I would
but-
rather
but-
see the media
of
have
course,
unfettered
of-
access to check
Listen,
what is
we've-
actually
we've
happening.
seen
But I want to bring
plenty
in.
of
Don't forget,
Hang on,
please.
Yusuf, don't
that
just keep
Gaza
talking.
is a war zone because of Hamas.
Yeah, I
and
want to
it's
bring
also
in
need to
Yusuf. You
take care
can't
of
just talk over
consideration of
everybody.
your,
I want to
security.
bring in Sahar, as I said earlier. Sahar, look, you've had it categorized that it's just a few people in these crowds who are chanting the bad stuff, and yet you have
Bad
said
stuff.
that Jewish students feel very threatened. I mean, how many people are you hearing using these chants, which are
It's
clear
not
threats?
right. So it's a good question. It's just not a few people. I have seen hundreds of students that I have classes with after October 7th. We're talking October 9th, chanting when people are occupied.
Yeah, but hold on. After what?
After October 7th, we're just not a few people. I have seen hundreds of students that I have classes with after October 7th. We're talking October 9th.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think October 9th it wasn't at all clear what the death toll was, shall we say. I might be wrong there, but I'm sure it was a little longer than that.
Chanting.
You know, because there was an initial reaction of, oh look, Gazans, Hamas, whoever, whatever, Palestinians have broken out of the blockaded strip. You know, there weren't sort of videos of dead civilians and so on. I don't think there were at that point. I don't know. Might be slightly off. I don't think there were in the first 2 days. I could be wrong, but yeah. So I can understand at that point where someone might say, you know, oh, exactly that. They've broken out of the besieged Gaza Strip for the first time in like 17 years. You know, not knowing that obviously a lot of civilians have been killed. However, you know, it's a much bigger topic, but yeah.
When people are occupied, resistance is justified in direct reference to the atrocities of October 7th. And let's remember that we're talking about Hamas coming into people's houses and amputating mothers in front of their children and gouging out fathers' eyes.
Okay.
And that
Evidence, yeah.
in the eyes of hundreds of my peers is justified. And just this weekend, we're talking about hundreds of my peers shouting, there is only one solution, Intifada revolution. Intifada is a call to genocide against Jewish people. This does not represent a minority. And the protest organizers that were human blockading me are at the forefront of their movement. So it's not random, unaffiliated people that are creating this unsafe environment. It's actually the students that identified me immediately are running these rallies and decided that they were going to taunt and blockade me and restrict my freedom of movement, and then cause the other 500 people in the rally to behave towards me with hostility and violence. They all passed.
Violence, 500 of them. This is just so stupid, to be honest. I mean, if they wanted to harm you, you know, you'd be harmed, wouldn't you? I don't think anyone would have been able to protect you. This is just stupid, emotional rubbish, and it's sad because it, you know, as what's the word now? As cliche as it is, it does undermine real incidents and sort of acts of racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, whatever, you know, whatever we're sort of referring to.
Passed by me. There's a video on my Twitter of students passing by me in a circle as they encircled me, and they all, one after the other, taunted me.
Okay.
It was not just like one of them taunted me.
No,
they
no, I hear
all
you.
taunted me one after the other, waving things in my face,
Yeah,
and
okay,
then this
let me-
culminated in a physical
And they wanted to kill her, you know what I mean? But all they did was wave a flag in her face. Like, it's just stupid, man.
assault.
Okay, but Jahad, let me just.
After the other, waving things in my face,
Yeah,
and
okay,
then this
let me-
culminated in a physical assault.
Okay, but Jahad, let me.
Someone
let me just
poked her
say that I
eye,
just think there's
which
a
is
conflation going on here
stupid,
by
whoever did that.
a number of these protesters. I don't know how many because I haven't seen them physically myself, but I'm hearing it's a significant number. But they seem to be conflating what the Israeli government is doing as a political decision, which is to wage this war on Hamas in the way they're waging it, with Jewish people generally. And when you start using rhetoric which threatens the lives of Jewish people, surely we can all agree that's completely unacceptable, can't we?
Absolutely,
hope that we can
and
all
I'm glad
agree
you
that
said that. What
closing
you're
the Intifada
hearing,
is
what you're
unacceptable.
hearing, right? So actually, people on the ground, right? Reporters on the ground, journalists on the ground, are saying that these are peaceful protests. They did not witness this, and on the ground, a lot of the protesters, about a third of the protesters,
There's so
are
many
Jewish.
Jews there, yeah,
And we're
it's
seeing
crazy,
Jewish
man.
Americans posting videos
Like,
on TikTok, like
Jews
Ahmed said.
against,
What are you talking about? Look at the Muslims praying. We're going to celebrate Shabbat. It's a
Come on, what's
multi-faith
going
and multiracial movement
Jews for peace
against
and
what they
whatnot.
consider to be a genocide. They want peace. They
But if
want a
you're
ceasefire.
chanting,
They're
okay,
against
but
occupation.
Jahad,
And
if they're
also,
chanting about
Yeah.
if they're chanting about Intifada, then they are chanting threats of genocide against the very people they claim are waging a genocide.
Are you suggesting that the Jewish students who are with these protesters are actually for their own genocide? Do you agree with the State of Israel that yesterday tweeted that they're terrorists? The State of Israel yesterday said that American students, a multiracial, multi-faith coalition across this country that is overwhelmingly peacefully protesting, according to the Jewish students
It's so
themselves,
dumb,
according to
man.
law enforcement,
I'm
and
so-
according to the
I
media,
don't even know why
do you
I'm
consider
watching
them
this
to be terrorists? I do not.
I think
You
if people
consider
are
that they're
chanting,
advocating for
They're
if
just
people are
shit
chanting
talking
about
points.
intifada,
I do not.
Well, I think if you're chanting about intifada, and I've seen others
Intifada.
talking proudly about backing Hamas, then yeah, you're supporting terrorism.
Who is supporting Hamas? There's a few people, isolated incidents, and yesterday, everyone should take solace in this. That yesterday,
What are you
the
talking
students
about?
were
Don't you
organizing the
listen to the
protest in
chants?
Colombia. Can you just let me finish, Ahmed? Yesterday, this will make you happy. Yesterday,
Just answer the question. The chants that they're
organizers
chanting is
yesterday
not one person or two
condemned
persons. It's the whole
the
student
ugly
shouting
anti-Semitic
intifada, intifada. I have
statements.
clips of that.
Yesterday, just let me finish. Yesterday, when it all came out, these 4 or 5 videos
You're
that
not
came out,
answering the
guess
question.
who condemned them in full? The protesters. And then they said they're not part of the protest. They're outside the school. And then the Jews
what
inside
they
the
always
protest
do.
movement are sending you videos saying that this does not represent us. So I, for one,
you're
think that we should
absolutely
put the
selling a
focus on what are people
false
saying.
reality.
They are against
this
an
is just not
ongoing
true.
collective punishment against Palestinians that has killed over 34,000 people thanks to direct and
You're
support and money
sugarcoating
from
it.
the United
You're
States. They want
absolutely
ceasefire.
sugarcoating
They
it.
want peace. And they want the end of an occupation. I would think everyone here who believes in justice and peace will be against an occupation and against a war that has been an utter failure for the past 7 months, that has brought no security to Israelis or Palestinians. Why do you not join me in Crystal in saying an anti-Semitism, anti-Islamophobia, and for a ceasefire and the release of hostages? Do you agree that these protesters
I
that include Jews
absolutely
are
agree with you
terrorists?
that we
I
need
do
to
not.
release all the hostages.
Israel tweeted that.
And only,
Do you agree with
only
Israel?
after you release all the hostages, we can talk about ceasefire, by the way. But
Do
it's
you
very
agree
nice to
with
hear
Israel
you say
that these
they are
protesters are
Peace-
terrorists?
I
asking you a question.
really find it very, very amusing that you are saying that they are peaceful protesters while they're chanting intifada, intifada.
Do
It's
you
either you
agree
don't know
that
what
American
intifada means,
students
or you
are
are
terrorists?
lying, or you are so brainwashed that you cannot even see the truth in front of your eyes. Intifada, intifada.
asking
I
you
will
a
repeat
simple
it again.
question.
The more of death of Jews and Arabs. And so when you chant
you
like this, with the
agree
whole
with
group chanting
Israel
like this,
and
that
Arabs
is the
that
chant.
these
So do you
college
agree that they should
protesters
not
are
chant
terrorists?
intifada, intifada? As I
Are they
said again,
terrorists?
do you
These
agree that they
include
shouldn't chant intifada, intifada? Are you agreeing that they shouldn't chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, because that means the
Bro,
demolition
it's
of
on
the
the
state of Israel?
Likud charter
Do
as
you
well, man.
agree
But I'm just
that
tired of
everybody
these
who
same
raised the
talking
symbol of
points.
Hamas
Let me
is a
bring in-
terrorist
okay.
supporter? Do you agree with all of that?
Let me bring in Crystal. Crystal.
Okay, so first of all, intifada means uprising from the river to the sea. Somehow, when it's Benjamin Netanyahu
Yeah, exactly,
using
yeah.
that phraseology or holding up
actually
a map that
boring,
literally
to be
shows
honest.
Israel from the river to the
Who
sea
cares
with no
about Benjamin
Palestinians.
Netanyahu?
Somehow
Answer the
that's
right
What do you mean, who
question.
cares?
Can you
about-
please, dude, just for a second,
What,
okay?
what do you mean
But when
intifada
it's
means
rally
uprising? Have you seen
chanters
intifada,
calling
first
for
intifada?
equal
Have you
rights,
seen the second
for equal
intifada?
human rights
You don't
for
know
Palestinians
anything.
and
You are not
Israelis.
from the Middle East.
Suddenly that's over the line. But let me just say, listen, people have a right to be offended by
What?
whatever
You're
they want to be
saying
offended
intifada
by.
as if
They
it's
have a
okay.
right.
Do you know
Yusuf
what
has a
intifada
right to be
means?
offended
Let
by
her
that.
speak, please,
That's
Yusuf.
his right. But guess what?
She's not
Free
even
speech
saying
is not
anything
Let her
about what
just
speak.
intifada
about
means.
You can respond after. Let her speak.
Unbelievable.
free speech is not just about speech that is comfortable. Free speech is also
Yeah,
about
you know what? Actually, the Americans are so much more relaxed on this free speech thing. It's quite crazy. Like in the UK, they have hate speech laws and stuff. The US is quite
speech
different.
that is uncomfortable and yes, even offensive, which is why Brian Mast, who said
Because ultimately, this intifada thing, and the river to the sea. It's kind of subjective, isn't it? It's how is it meant? It's like if you tell someone, F you. You might mean it in a serious way. You might mean it in a hostile way. You might, I guess there's a nuance to it. Is the right way of describing it. But these are just the same shitty talking points. Is what's a bit annoying about this video. Maybe I should have kind of flicked through it before.
that there's
It's
no such thing as an
Bollocks.
innocent Palestinian civilian, a member of Congress who's in an actual position of power, or the many Israeli officials who talked about Palestinians are human animals, no uninvolved civilians, Amalek, all of these things. I support their right to say it. It's condemnable. I think it's very revealing. I think it is genocidal. But free speech also protects statements that you find to be uncomfortable.
Yes, but here's the question, Crystal, for you.
One last thing, Piers.
Okay.
Let me just say one last thing. I think we know that this isn't a genuine conversation about Jewish student safety because we see zero concern for the many Jewish students who are in fact at the center of these protests. Somehow they're invisibilized.
really
And
not
you're right,
many.
Piers, to point
It's
out.
not many.
You're right,
Oh
Piers, to
my
point
days,
out
she's-
that it
this
is
woman's-
anti-Semitic to conflate all Jews with the state of Israel
Yeah.
and with the policies of the state
Yeah,
of
but I
Israel.
would also ask
And I
you.
also
All right,
see
but
that
Crystal, I would
happening
ask
from the
you.
Zionist
Nobody's
side.
saying
Okay, but
that.
Crystal,
In fact,
Crystal,
I'm not a Jew.
hang on, Yusuf.
And I'm not a Jew, and I'm telling you.
So them
I'm not a Jew.
attacking him, it was not nothing to do with anti-Semitism.
I'm not a Jew. and I say it, and I will say it all the time, never generalize a group of people. Of course, there are part of the Jewish
Yusuf, you're
uh,
Christian,
You're
right?
doing. You're generalizing all
Hang on,
protesters.
hang
You're
on.
genocidal,
But that's
anti-Semite.
Do not
supposed
talk
to be
over
the
each other. Yusuf,
that
just to
they are
clarify,
part of
Yusuf,
the anti-Israeli cause, but
to
the majority
clarify for
are not.
viewers,
Don't
Yusuf,
do it.
to clarify for viewers, you are Arab Israeli, but you're Christian. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So I want to
Oh,
ask.
so he likely knows about the treatment of Christians in Israel as well. You know, we've seen the videos of them just spitting on. I don't know how prominent it is, so I don't want to, you know, kind of generalize too much as well. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I visited, there was certainly something like that. So once or twice.
The
I want
fact
to
is-
ask Crystal.
and the fact is,
I want to ask Crystal
So how common is it? You know, I was only there for a few days. I don't know.
one question about Intifada. Can you tell me about an Intifada that wasn't a violent uprising during the 75 years of this conflict?
Listen, you can support the non-violent parts of an uprising and condemn the violent
Wasn't the first Intifada sort of started with stone throwing and so on?
parts.
No,
I
but
think
that
we should
wasn't
all
my
be doing. I
question. My
condemn
question was,
violence against-
can you tell me
I condemn
can you tell me of
violence
any
against,
Intifada in the 75 years of this conflict that hasn't involved a violent uprising? So that when
The first-
somebody who
the first
is Jewish
Intifada in
hears the word
particular
Intifada,
was-
they don't
but-
automatically think violent uprising because
Also, what's wrong with violence as far as resistance goes? I mean, they do have a legal right. There is a legal right, you know, by international law, occupied territory. You do have a right to, you know, physical resistance. It's just obviously the manner in which it's done. Exactly, you know.
they've all
I
been
think,
violent.
I think that's fair, Piers. I think that's a
And obviously, these guys will say, "Oh, right, yeah, so suicide bombing and so on." And I'm sure, hopefully, well, I'm quite confident in saying these guys just saying Intifada. They're not saying, "Hey guys, go and do suicide bombings," are they?
fair point.
But absolutely physical. You know, you can go and. Okay, this is one sort of point I'd make here, which it's been irritating me a bit, right? Yeah, I'm gonna throw it out there. So, these guys go on about the number of people killed, right, on both sides. Obviously, it's quite it has been the talking point, or critical point anyway, hasn't it? So they say, I think it's so they usually the figure given is 1,200 Israelis killed. We know around 400 of them were IDF or armed and so on, like you know, armed police or whatever the case may be, or even if you just stick with IDF, it's roughly 400, isn't it? And then the you know, on the Palestinian side, they don't, basically what I'm saying is they don't differentiate there between the military and civilians. They just say 1,200. But on this end, you know, if you have anyone resisting, obviously they label Hamas, the entire Hamas, you know, the whole group as a terrorist organization. It's another tangent, but you know, if you're doing civil services under Hamas, the government, you know, you're a Hamas affiliate as well. So it gets it's just stupid. That's just a roll out my mouth in a really stupid way, but anyway.
Now, the first Intifada I would
I don't
point
even
out
think I
was
completed the point,
overwhelmingly
but yeah.
peaceful, but that doesn't erase the fact that there were violent acts. That's why I said, listen,
What?
if you're offended by the rally chants, that's okay. It's still free speech. But I think to smear this entire protest group of saying they have violent intent, you can ask the NYPD chief who arrested protesters at Columbia. He literally said they were all nonviolent. So I just think this is such a clear attempt to distract from what's happening in Gaza and try to change a conversation, a debate that has been lost
even
by those who would say,
peaceful
listen,
protests,
Israel, no
even-
matter what.
Because that's the other thing. So these guys are constantly criticizing the protests and police. I mean, I know they're about Columbia University in America here, but in the UK we hear it a lot as well. So are they implying that the police are all, you know, like institutionally anti-Semitic as well?
And
In
we're going to
fact-
support them and ship weapons no matter what.
well, I think
You
I
know,
would
and Hamas sympathizers and whatever.
say before I come
Sorry,
to
Chris, I
Yusuf,
didn't wanna-
before I come to Yusuf, I would say this: that Vajahat, you do keep talking about peaceful protests, but actually, if you are chanting things like Intifada at a bunch of Jewish people, then they are not going to see that as a message of peace. They're going to see that as a direct threat on their lives. So they're not. That's not
First
a
and-
peaceful protest to me.
Well, the thing is this: people also are terrified from the words Allahu Akbar. It means something different. Even the word martyrs, when it comes to Islam, means to those who are killed. This includes the children who have been killed, the
Car
women, the
crash,
pregnant moms who have
you
been
know,
killed,
yeah.
the 34,000 people have been killed. We've seen the
I think
weaponization
it might be, could be wrong here. Do double check. Instant sort of deaths
of Islamophobia, where
Like
certain
car
words are
crashes.
deliberately mistranslated
are classed as martyrs. You know.
and misinterpreted. And we've also seen,
Do double check that.
again, the overwhelming majority of these protesters are not saying these things. We have videos of them. They include Jews, they
That's a
include
lie.
black people, white people,
That's
Christians,
absolutely a
atheists,
lie.
That's just
Muslims.
not true. They're
And
saying it.
meanwhile,
They're saying it.
Israel calls
This is
them
absolutely a
terrorists.
lie, and this is
Israel
exactly
calls
the
them
problem. And by
terrorists.
the way,
Please let me finish,
And by
Emma.
the way,
Emma,
and by
I know
the
you're
way,
on the losing side of the argument
I
because
was
you're
there. I
always
have no
interrupting me
idea
and
if you were
Crystal.
at Columbia
Please just
demonstration
let me
outside of the
finish.
Columbia University.
I'm asking
They were
you,
shouting
in good
all
faith,
these
let me
chants.
just finish.
They were calling
Give
me
me
to
10
commit
seconds.
suicide. They
Give me
attacked
10
me physically
seconds.
and verbally.
Please.
Don't lie. It wasn't one or
Okay.
two or three. It was a large
Piers,
group of people.
Piers, may-
And what you're
Piers, can
trying
you
to
take
do is
control of your
lying to
show?
the
All
audience,
right.
and I will
Piers.
not allow
Okay,
it. I will
Youssef, you made your
absolutely
point.
not allow it.
All right.
Don't lie.
Piers.
I'm the one who was
Youssef,
attacked.
Youssef, you've made
I
your
am the one who was attacked.
Youssef, stop
Piers,
shouting at
Viciously
everybody.
attacked.
Seconds.
Okay.
Don't try to sugarcoat
Okay,
it.
Let
listen.
him finish his point. I'll
I
come
think
to
the
you.
people, just listen, Pierce.
Youssef's
people
a
on the
fiery
ground,
one,
right? You've
bro.
said this before. I've heard this. People on the ground, reporters from NBC who were there, reporters from CNN, not anti-Semites, did not hear this. Say overwhelmingly peaceful. Jewish neighbors, Jewish faculty members, Jewish students have said this is a mischaracterization of our community. Campus Hillel, the Center of Student Life in Columbia, told students not to leave, althougugh they said that they want to feel safe and they
All
want.
right, but okay, I would
the
say back to
community
you.
do something about
I would say
anti-Semitism.
back to you. Hang
You've
on.
also seen.
No, Vajra,
Yes.
I would say back to you that Rabbi Eli Buchler, I think is the, or Buchler, told students at Columbia on Sunday over WhatsApp, the events of the last few days, especially last night, have made it clear that Columbia University's public safety and the NYPD cannot guarantee Jewish student safety in the face of extreme anti-Semitism and anarchy. It deeply pains me to say I would strongly recommend you return home as soon as possible and remain home until the reality in and around campus has dramatically improved. It's not our job as Jews to ensure our own safety on campus. No one should have to endure this level of hatred, let alone at school. That's a rabbi at Columbia University. These are not just
So that rabbi is giving that message out regarding Jews. So what about this Arab here, this Israeli Arab? No one's ensured his safety either, have they? He's not part of that conversation by the sounds of it.
And you know who
peace-loving
responded
people.
It's like they want the the cake and they want to eat it. It just doesn't add up. Is it anti-Semitism? Is it unless you want to say it's both, then it's more it's anti-Semitism, but it's also what anyone supporting the Israeli actions, and that's why they target this guy. But then how do you? It's anti-Semitism, and what's contrary to that is the fact that there's Jews who are part of this protest.
After the rabbi.
This is just bullshit, to be honest with you. I'm open to be proven wrong, but
spewing peaceful rhetoric. There are people in these
you know
protests
who
who are
responded?
making very threatening chants towards Jewish people, to the extent that rabbis are telling Jewish students to stay at home.
yeah, like Rabbi Shmuley.
That's a complete outrage, isn't it?
And who responded? And who responded after the rabbi? The Campus Hillel. And if you know anything about Jewish American life, you should trust Campus Hillel as the center of Jewish American life. Campus Hillel afterwards said, no Jewish students do not go home. So Campus Hillel should be more trusted right now. And the Jewish students who are, again, part of this peaceful
Because
protest.
Campus
I want to
Hillel
remind
wants
everyone
to fight.
what
They
happened
don't want
against
to
these
run away
peaceful
from a
protests.
fight. Stop looking at it as if it's
The
not. They want to
NYPD
fight. They want
riot
to fight the
police was
extremists,
unleashed
and they want
against
to
these
because they know that
protesters.
if they go home,
And the
that will
police
set a
themselves said
precedent
that these
working
are
for
peaceful
them. For the
protesters.
extremists
You
to expel
cannot-
Jews or pro-Israelis. That is the
You
truth.
cannot
That's
silence-
What's she saying? They want to what? Resist,
They want to
fight.
fight.
What
They
happened
don't
They want
want
to
to run
fight.
away from a
Protest.
fight. Stop looking at it as if it's
The
not. They want to
NYPD
fight. They want
riot
to fight the
police
extremists.
What does he mean by fight?
Unleashed
And they want
against
to
these
because they know that
protesters.
if they go home,
And the
that will
police
set a
themselves
precedent
said that
that's
these are
working for
peaceful
them. For the
protesters.
extremists
You
to expel
cannot-
Jews or pro-Israelis. That is the
You
truth.
cannot
That's
silence-
why Hillel don't want to go.
You cannot
because that will
silence
allow
and
them to be
shame
more
a
extreme.
multi-faith
Because it means
and
that they want
multiracial
to
protest
expel the
against
Jews out
Israel's
of the campuses.
collective punishment
Stop
against
lying,
Palestinians.
Let me bring. All right. Let me
The
bring.
Jews want to expel
me-
the Jews,
okay.
apparently.
Let me bring back
No, listen,
Saha.
I-
Hang on.
you
Hang
touch
on.
the- I
If you
cannot
talk over each
criticize
other,
it.
nobody
I
can
cannot
hear
criticize
either
what
of you.
happened there.
No
I am
one
the
can hear
who was
either of
attacked.
you when you shout
I am
over
the
each
one who
other.
knows exactly what they are doing.
Yeah, okay,
Don't
you said
sugarcoat all this.
nobody will hear you when you shout over people. So, Saha, I want to just ask you, what are you going to do as a Jewish student now? What will you do in the next few days and weeks?
Yeah, thank you for asking. God willing, this evening I'll be home and not on campus for the holiday of Passover. And when I return to campus, I've made a serious effort to receive direct protection from the university and have an escort on a regular basis. But the university has in the past failed and is continuing to not provide me with that direct protection. And so, to be really quite honest with you, I don't know what I will do, because I have seen hundreds of students organize to call for the genocide of me and my people, and I have seen hundreds of students taunt visibly Jewish students live and in person at these rallies. My peers are, I'm frightened by them, to be frank, and I should be, because I've been assaulted once, and I don't see why it shouldn't happen again, because it's being organized and encouraged and protected by the rallies themselves and by the rally organizers themselves. Again, when a student assaulted me by jabbing me in the eye, what
And the
happened
police
afterwards was
and
that
the
the
law,
human
it's protected
blockade
by everyone.
of protest organizers,
Human
of
blockade.
student
It's just so ironic, you know, when the word blockade is used. you know.
leaders in these anti-Semitic rallies. That blockade stopped me from finding
The Jewish anti-Semites in this blockade.
out who my assailant was. It's all about violence. It's all about having a student assault another student and then ensuring that they have immunity because their face is covered
She
in
said 500 people blockaded her. She's saying it's all about violence. She got poked in the eye.
Nicosia.
I mean, you know, whoever did that is an idiot, right? Because you undermine everything by doing something stupid like that. But it's still bollocks, you know, what she's saying, part of it anyway, you know. For certain, we can cross out that it's just pure, it's all about violence. That's what she said, man. She said it's
That blockade stopped me from finding out who my assailant was. It's all about violence.
all about violence. 500 people blockaded her and she got poked in the eye once.
all about having a student assault another student and then ensuring
Let's say they hate you, let's say they, you know, whatever you want to use. It's to say it's all about violence and this and that, and you've got 500 people and you got poked in the eye.
they have immunity because their face is
It's obviously not all about violence.
covered in ichthyophobia and because you let them run away. This is how these protests are crafted to create incidents of violence against students like me and then
Dude, they're not doing very well. If fucking all they do is they get over 500 people together, and all they do is poke one person in the fucking eye.
oh, it wasn't us. It was someone unaffiliated, but we protected them. But they're a student at the university, but we let them into our rally and we let them stay at our rally. It's a method, and it works, obviously.
Okay. We've got to leave it there. I appreciate that passions are running high on either side, and I appreciate the spirited.
I
debate. Thank you all very
apologize
much.
for this shit.
Thank you.
I thought it'd go a bit better than this. I don't know. We're figuring it out, man. We're figuring it out. I don't know how much I'm supposed to speak. Also, in part, I feel like, am I ripping off someone's like YouTube or something by just watching the video if I don't talk enough? But honestly, that just wasn't very engaging. It was just a lot of bollocks. I mean, I guess when there is more than just myself watching the video live, there'll be like a chat to interact with. So maybe a lot of the conversation goes there, I guess, you know. Yeah, so I'll leave this live, man. If I've said anything mistakenly or if I need to be reprimanded, feel free to whack in the comments and whatnot. And I quite enjoy this. This wasn't the best, but I've kind of tried it once or twice before. And I think I'll be doing it more often. Just bear with me as I figure it out. Like these stupid camera angles and whatnot. Yeah, if you watch this far, man. If you actually watch this far, do just put a comment so I know that someone watched this far. And subscribe. I'm trying to get the maybe build a subscriber base. Yeah. If you've got anything you want me to watch and criticize, I'll be happy to do that too. Alright, man. Take care.